Day 3 begins with a Dominican take on an American breakfast. On the table, we have options that ranged anywhere from eggs and sausage to Choco Congo cereal. After breakfast, we headed to the beach to enjoy our last carefree day before the work begins. We headed to Playa Guayacanes, which is a local beach instead of one of the more popular touristy ones. There we are able to witness Dominicans from all walks of life, in one of the few settings where the rich and poor merge together. This is where I met Carlos, who was born in and now again resides in the Dominican Republic, but also lived in the United States for much of his life. He wasn't afraid to point out a few concerns of his regarding the Dominican social class system.
The love is going to end it. People don't love each other no more. Mm-hmm. You know, we try to do, the best we could, but hate is taking control.
So do you think the people of a higher social status with more money here, you're saying you don't think they care about
the poor. They don't care about the minor.
So is that kind of what the problem is? That's what causes the poor to get poorer and the rich to get richer?
Yeah, because over here there's only two. You are rich or you are poor. That's it. It's not middle class. No.
Manolo Dominguez Sanz, who has lived in the country his whole life and is father of our host family, was kind enough to elaborate on the problems this social class separation has caused.
Each day gets bigger and more amplified. It's caused by distribution of wealth that the country has. There's a lot of people with very little, but the majority has nothing. It's because of the wealth distribution that there's so much poverty. It adds to the inequality that already exists.
After a little more fun at the beach, we break for lunch, where we enjoy fresh seafood, much of which we saw the locals catching, chicken, and many other sides. Once we finish up, we once again ran into Carlos, who this time had a question of his own. He asked us what we think of where we come from. And when my translator Kaylee dared to say Iowa was boring, which, let's face it, it often is by our standards, he made sure to correct us.
Listen. That's part of it. I mean, Iowa had to be Iowa the way God made Iowa. Sometimes, sometimes we don't want to accept whatever God gave us. Sometimes we don't want to, it's boring, this and that. But God knows what is good or what is bad. You see, Iowa have something that we don't have over here.
What's that?
Well, like the economy, right. The way of living,
That's true.
So that's a bless. That's a bless from God.
This strong faith is very common in the Dominican, as it is often what gets many of the country's citizens that are living in less than optimum conditions out of bed in the morning. I sat down with Edmundo, who we spoke with earlier, to get his thoughts on the religious views of the Dominican people.
Well, we have two alternatives. One is to the building of conformity. You agree to live under certain conditions and then say, well, God wants me to live as I'm living and support sufferings and denial and all that, and then therefore I must be able to love people and not question any of the systems, the ruling systems. But you have another alternative, and this is, I think, where we really need to move. We need to return Jesus to the churches and make the churches be the place where His words and His message of freedom and justice and compassion and sensitivity for the suffering and the poor be the main message of the churches.
All this talk about religion in the Dominican came at the perfect time, as that night we attended a local church service to see what it was all about. After about an hour of announcements and being called up to the front so they could show their appreciation for what we were doing, the sermon began. The congregation listened intently. Well, most of the congregation. As the pastor talked about Jesus' return, and if he were to come now, if we would be ready. After she finished, an extended prayer began. Leaders of the church came around and prayed for individuals, us in particular. It was unlike anything most of us had ever seen, with the extreme passion that is most comparable to a Pentecostal service one would likely find in the South. It was a little strange, but I'm sure a lot of our customs are to them as well. After about 2 hours, they closed the service and our evening with songs of praise. Today the work begins, but only in the house. We spend hours sorting donations, from clothes to school supplies, preparing to deliver them to the Bate tomorrow. Bates are small villages that were created by sugarcane companies for their workers many years ago. As sugarcane production decreased, so did the quality of the Bates, which are now the home of the majority of the poverty-stricken people in the Dominican. But back to today. After a long morning and afternoon of work, we sit down with Ariadna, who takes advantage of this rare free time to explain to us her line of work. She proceeded to explain how several years ago she went to the Bates to donate some of her own things, and then realized their need for a wide variety of clothes, medicine, and other goods that she didn't have. She then began asking friends and family for a variety of goods, and eventually her distributions in the Bates became larger and larger. Finally, she founded Funicom, a charity organization that fights against poverty and child labor in the poor communities of the Dominican Republic. It wasn't long after she founded the organization that it became accredited as an NGO, and in recent years has been acknowledged by the country's president, Fernandez. She finished by offering us a piece of advice and reflection.
That she really challenges you, all of you, to dare to dream and to believe that God is going to accompany you in helping your dreams to come true. I know that you have to be willing to risk and to be aware that with the joy that comes with this work, there also comes a lot of tears and a lot of pain because of what you're exposed to.
And with that, we went to bed early, as we had a big day ahead of us tomorrow at the Bate. We leave early in the morning and head to Bate Monte Cristi. This Bate is a little better off than most Bates, but the poor conditions are still very evident. We arrive at the church where we meet with the children. This is where we will spend the majority of our time this week distributing school supplies and helping the children with arts and crafts. Our first day is primarily meant to get acquainted. We do this by interacting and playing games with the children. This is when I met Phoebe, a Peace Corps officer who has been working in the Bate for 8 months. She sat down with me in her home and talked about what her experience has been like so far.
So whenever I have a rough day or think, what am I doing this for? I should go back to the States and choose that life of 27 students in a classroom with order and curriculum and materials and all of those amazing things that I took for granted in the past. I think about how even if it's one child that's coming here and learning those things, that I'm making a difference.
After our talk, she offered to take me on a tour of the Bate. Let me apologize in advance for the shaky camera, but the bumpy dirt roads aren't easy to stay steady on. She starts by taking us down one of the poorer areas of the Bate, where mostly Haitian immigrants are currently living. She says conditions there have continually gotten worse as sugarcane production has decreased. The homes in this area are the most poverty-stricken and typically have dirt floors and very minimal resources, including a lack of shoes. That has to be painful. From there, she takes me by a cockfighting arena that they call...
This is the gallerina. It's where the cocks fight.
Oh, okay.
Or la galera. Gosh, I can't remember what it's called. I kind of avoid this place because the cockfighting freaks me out a little bit, but they keep the cocks in here and they fight in here, and every Sunday they have a big fight and people gamble on which cocks are going to win.
We then leave the poorer area and begin to see slightly nicer homes, many of which aren't finished, however. Phoebe explains that this is because they have family members in the States that send back money when they can. The families in the Bates then use the money, one check at a time, to add on a new part of the home. Phoebe explains some of the problems that she's seen that come with this strategy.
There's not a tremendous amount of foresight in the Bate because there's that conditioning that comes with when things are handed out to you. You use them right away. So unfortunately, when it comes to money or clothing or books or materials or anything along those lines, they're normally used right away. And there's a tremendous generosity, which is really incredible, but when someone gets a pile of cement, the neighbor comes over and borrows 5 gallons, or the other neighbor comes over and borrows gravel, or what have you. So
this sense of generosity, even when they already have so little, is amazing. For example, almost all the things in Phoebe's home were donated to her from members of the community, because they recognized that she was living off of a salary from the Peace Corps that is similar to their own. We continued up the road and came upon
the baseball field for the Bate and a tremendous percentage of Dominicans leave for the U.S. to play baseball.
Phoebe isn't exaggerating. In fact, the U.S. is the only country that has more players in the majors than the Dominican Republic. Baseball is by far the national pastime of the DR. From youths to adults, most Dominicans will use whatever they can to just play a little of their favorite game. From there we head to the main road, where we find the three modes of transportation of the Bate: the moto, the horse, and the rare car. We continue down the road and find
a bank, a banca. This is the lottery system of the DR, and unfortunately, in my opinion, it's kind of the tax on the poor, because most of the people spend their last peso hoping that they'll win big when they could use it on food or on water.
We then head to the school, at which 250 of the local children attend. This school is fairly extraordinary for Abate. With nice facilities and educated teachers, the only thing they are lacking is a good library, which was already short enough on books before termites got into most of them. From there, we head to the other most beneficial part of Abate.
This is the free clinic. It's supported by funds from USAID, but it's also supported by the government. Anyone in the Bate can seek medical assistance, medication, scripts, any kind of drugs, including heavy narcotics. And then, depending on what their needs are, sometimes the clinic will pay their transportation to get to Ramon Santana or San Pedro if it's something that they can't help them with.
Free.
That's all for free.
What do they end up seeing the most there, really, as far as health issues go?
What do they end up seeing the most?
Narcotics, so they think people are lying a lot?
The three main things in the Bate are high blood pressure, are diabetes, and kidney failure.
Just as a side note, the likeliness of suffering from those three illnesses can be drastically lessened by drinking clean water, which most of them can't afford. From there we head to the community center, where I'm apparently flirted with a little bit.
Are you married? She wants to know. Not yet.
Too bad I don't have this kind of luck with the little girls from the church. We head inside to see that it's unfinished. Phoebe also informs me that besides being the community center, this building is also
the Red Cross shelter for the whole community. So 1,400 people need to fit in here when there's a hurricane.
On our way out, the girl makes another comment.
You're a good person. Sí, es evidente, de verdad. Muy amable. Sí.
Whoa, back that up. Did I just get sexually harassed? I'm not complaining, I'm just asking. We then head by some of the local food and supply stores, and I decide to ask Phoebe about some of the violence in the Bate that I had been hearing about.
The most dangerous part of the Bate is the carretera, the highway, where the highway comes into the Bate. There are people that won't even enter the Bate or leave the Bate because there's thieves that sit in the trees or sit in the embankment on the highway and rob people going by. And there's been murders that have happened right there at the entrance.
After that, she talks about how she never goes out at night because she's a target because of her assumed high social class. She then goes on to explain that a part of the social class
is hair. Hair's first. So if you have blonde hair, if you have straight hair, that is just it insinuates that you are the highest class.
That explains why all the kids are always playing with their hair, and why Dominican women often get extensions or obsess over their hair looking just right. The second way social class is determined is
the skin color that you have is the second thing.
The lighter the better. The lighter-skinned Dominicans are constantly getting better jobs, and pretty much monopolize the tourist industry, while the darker-skinned people are often looked down on. And the final social class symbol is
shoes, actually, are another indicator. So it goes hair, skin, shoes, and depending on what you're wearing, that can be an indicator of how much wealth you have.
Okay, I had no idea about that one. But that marks the end of my long but fascinating tour with Phoebe.